Welcome to the Moms Makin Dough Podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Hewitt, and today is episode 55. And I am calling this episode, It's Not Goodbye, It's Ta-Ta for Now. And it brings me back to one of my really good friends. She has a tiger tattoo, and she and I have known each other for, I think we're going on 25 plus years. And I'm super excited because she actually is coming to visit this weekend and spend some time with Lily and I. And this episode, when I was going to sit and record it, I have really sat on this episode today because I was just thinking about it as like, I've been on the fence, straddling the fence on if this is the right thing to do for me right now. And if you guys listened to my last episode where I really talked about, are you the visionary or the bottleneck? And I talked about revisiting the exercise of doing the time audit and really looking at your priorities. And one of the things that's really important to me as a coach, as an entrepreneur, as a human, is that I really walk my talk. And I talked about how in that episode that I was challenging myself to revisit that exercise of the time audit on how I was spending my time. Now, when I've talked about the time audit in the past, it's always been in the context of like looking at how you're spending time in your business. But when I completed the business time audit right prior to recording that last episode, and then I said, I felt really compelled that I really had to do a check-in on myself, on my life, like my life in general. And I've decided that the Moms Makin Dough brand, and this has been in my heart for a little while now, but like I said, I had to really go through some stuff to really see if this was the right decision for me at this time. Is I loved it. I've loved every second of doing this podcast, but I'm feeling very called that some of my messaging needs to change because there are things that are presenting for myself in my businesses, in my life, in my motherhood, in my marriage, that like I need to really start to reprioritize and really make sure that I am walking my talk, which is when you look at how you're spending your time, is your ladder on the right wall? Are your priorities in really are the priorities you say you have really your priorities? So I've decided that this is actually going to be the last episode of Moms Makin Dough, not for good, not forever, but for at least a couple months. And I'm super inspired. This seed was planted by one of the women that really inspired me to start my own podcast, Jenna Kutcher. She runs a show called Goal Digger. And she is someone I have followed religiously for a really long time. And just at the beginning of this year, I believe, she had done an episode where she talked about how like she had this goal. She was almost at 1,000 episodes. And then all of a sudden she's like, why do I need to get at 1,000 episodes, to be able to stop doing this and start doing something else? And that really hit me because I was like, you know what? I was just about a year into my podcast. And I think I am one of those people that definitely has like targets where it's like, it's associated to a specific number. Like after I've done this many episodes, then I can talk about this, or I could do this. And I started just kind of questioning that thinking for myself. But so I did this time audit on my life after I had done it on my businesses. And one of the things that I realized is that I typically am what I like to call, I love to be busy. Busy is a form of distraction for me, as is I find for many women. And one of the things that I started to realize is my daughter's 5 years old. And what really catapulted me to do this episode today was the fact that I found out that her last day of school is June 4th. And it is April, I think 28th today, which means I have a month. And that timeline really gave me a little bit extra motivation to really sit with this the last couple of days before I recorded this. and be honest with myself of some of the messaging for Moms Making Dough. I'm feeling really called to start talking about some different things, and being more specific, a little bit more niche, not as narrow. I'm being called to do less and less one-on-one private coaching, more group coaching to maximize my time, and also to build a sense of community. Because one of the things I realized is that when we were in COVID, that was something that really was missing for me. In motherhood was like this sense of community, this sense of, a village, I like to call it. And I've noticed that a lot of my private clients, like they are people who I've been with, many cases have been with me multiple years at this point. And some of them have been in small groups with me before. And I'm really feeling to kind of change the direction of where I'm going with my coaching. And I thought this was really a very poignant point in time because we're going into the summer and I'm thinking about, holy shit, my daughter's 5. And because this is her last summer as a toddler. And it got me really thinking about how motherhood, there's so many transitions. It's like you think you get one thing down and then you have, something new pops up or something different or something has to change, right? And I thought about it how when she started her pre-kindergarten program, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have so much like time that I haven't had for the last couple years. And I immediately started feeling it. And I'm really proud of this, but I started filling it with a lot of things that brought me joy. And a lot of things that got me back in my creative flow, podcasting being one of them. And now I feel like I'm in a little bit of a transition where it's like I have a very, very clear idea of what my purpose is, what my calling is, and how it's starting to evolve into my reality, which means I need to make space for that new vision to evolve. And although this podcast, like I said, is an amazing outlet, I've got so much valuable feedback and a general appreciation for it, which has been super, super helpful for where I've been in my life. Just, needing that when you're in the thick of the mundane motherhood period of time where it's like a lot of like feeding and, your kids aren't really independent, so to speak. So they're very dependent on you for many things, right? Help me put my shoes on, help me tie my shoes, like all these things that I wouldn't change for the world. I started to realize is like this time just goes so fast. And if you blink, it's over. Like for me to even think about the possibility that my daughter is graduating pre-K and going to be in kindergarten next year, there's a lot of emotions there. And I know like we're getting at that period of time where like a lot of moms are going to be coming up with different graduations from high school, graduations from college, graduations from pre-K. And there's so much emotion behind that. And it's like, I don't want to miss it. I think I spent the first couple years of my journey of motherhood just really wanting to speed it up. And now I'm understanding how sage-like the advice for many moms I know and many of my personal friends, many of my clients, many of my mentors of like, just like savor it. And so I've decided that I am going to, like I said, put a pause on this podcast. And again, it's not goodbye forever. It is ta-ta for now. It's going to come back, possibly with some new messaging, some new branding, but it will be more alignment as I start to shift into this next phase of this like elementary phase of my daughter. And I want to be there for her. I want to be present for her. There's some things I want to help her with, which, every hour of space I can fill up to do something that is alignment with where I want to go and is time that I'm getting back to do something that's moving me towards something I really want to create for her, for myself, and for just my life in general, our lives in general, I should say, my husband and I's. So, I don't deliver this message lightly, but I wanted to kind of t- like just free flow on this. There's no framework on me sharing this today of just being really having the courage to like I said, not call it, but the courage to call it when you look at something like this exercise that stimulated this, the time audit of my life of like, hey, I've got to the point where like every bit of my calendar right now is being filled with something, and feeling the need to want to really slow down and give myself permission to do so. And you know what's so funny is like when I think about permission, it's like a concept that comes up with so many people, myself included, so many clients, so many even friends, of like, hey, can you give yourself permission to do that? And it's like, you don't need permission from anybody else. Sometimes that permission comes from yourself. And so I really got to thinking of like I said, after I did, when I recorded last week's episode, I had already done the business time audit. Then I did this one. I felt really called to do it on my life. And I just over the last week, just really wrote down like, hey, where am I spending my time? And the cool thing is that I'm spending my time doing a lot of things that bring me joy. But I'm also feeling really, really called to start to carve out some time for building what's next, creating what's next. And I don't mean in a monetary way, although that is something, one part of my motivation is that I'm seeing a lot of opportunity, for me to really contribute more financially to my family, which means I need to reorganize some of how I am spending my time, be way more deliberate in how I'm spending it. And it's not all just about, bringing in money, but I want to free up some time and protect the time that I have when I'm not working to be present with my family, to be present doing things that bring me joy. And I certainly don't want to say that this podcast has not brought me joy, but lately I'm finding it harder and harder to be able to carve out the time to do this. And like I said, a couple weeks or so, I really sat with this because I was like, man, this old story of like, you always start things and then you don't quit them or you quit them, or sometimes you give up too soon, started to come up for me. And it brought me like really, really intimately facing that story for myself of like, hey, how do I have when is it the courage to call it that is actually going to free me up for this or something better? And one of my dear, dear friends who's no longer physically on this earth always used to say, when you're manifesting, ask for this or something better. And I've started to realize how much I really still struggle with asking for help, asking for guidance, asking for support, and about how part of that story I really want to rewrite. And part of this right now is me letting go of the fact that like, hey, I don't have to be doing the same thing all the time. I have to be willing to evolve. I have to have the courage to evolve. And that's part of what I've been really working through these last couple months of healing old wounds so I can make space to create something new and step into something new. And I think as females, as women, as entrepreneurs, as moms, as friends, as wives, as daughters, as partners, it is so easy for us to just stay comfortable and not exercise that courage muscle of like, hey, what if I tried something a little bit different, even though I'm really happy with what I have. I'm content with what I have. And really challenging myself to ask myself that is like, what would it look like if I did some things a little bit different, even though they don't feel comfortable? And back to when Jenna Kutcher announced that she was no longer going to be recording her podcast, similar fashion. She said, it's not goodbye forever. It's just goodbye for now. And the question of, am I ready for this? and or can I say this or something better? So there's a good chance that when I come back to podcasting, it will be this or it will be something better. It will be a new evolution of me. And maybe a new message. I'm not quite sure. But I'm feeling really, really called that I need to start to make a transition for the vision I have for the next, I would say, few years of my life. I'm going to be 45 this year. And I have a very crystal clear vision of some of the things, some of the ways I want to help people, some of the ways I want to serve this world, some of the things that would be involved in my purpose. I definitely don't have all the answers. I definitely do not have a roadmap. That is scary as fuck for me. I don't like not having a roadmap. I don't like not having a plan. But me getting a little bit uncomfortable in not knowing what is next is feeling like what I need to do to exercise that courage muscle. So that was what I wanted to just share about today, is that, like I said, it is not goodbye. It's ta-ta for now, just like Tigger, my girlfriend's tattoo, would say, from Winnie the Pooh. And just thank you all for your support, your kind words, your messages you've sent me, the reviews you've given me. And I'll be completely honest, this was a really good exercise in me just putting myself out there. Because for a long time, that my fear of what other people thought of me would drive a lot of my behavior. And this was my next evolution. It started a couple years ago where I started, I had a coach, personal coach of mine, that challenged me to do like a video series and go live every day. And what I learned from that going live every day was, number one, was actually it was kind of fun. Number two was, even when I didn't think I had something to talk about, sometimes those would be like literally like 20-minute videos. Hence that the idea of, hey, you should start a podcast because you can talk more than 20 minutes and people might actually listen because they'll choose to listen instead of like probably cut you off. And while I think that I've definitely this podcast is definitely, Moms Makin Dough has definitely served its purpose. I just feel an evolution coming where there's going to be next level. And like I said, I'm starting to see some of the seeds that are being planted. I'm not seeing the fruit of them yet, but here's the thing, for seeds to grow, they have to be watered, they have to be nurtured, which means you need to give it time for it to bloom. And I feel like this podcast has really helped me bloom where I've been planted, right? Like where I was currently at. But now I want to move towards a new reality. And again, that requires me to free up space, to till soil, to pull some weeds, of stories that are no longer serving me, to really look at how I'm spending my time. Do my priorities match up with the time that I am spending? And then get really strategic on what that looks like for me to rework some of those priorities. And it's like I said, it really hit me. Like I felt so clearly last week when I saw, or Monday, this was Monday, yesterday, I went to school and I was like, listen, can you guys tell me what the last day of school is? Because on the calendar it says this, and on my, but I seem to remember pre-K graduates early. And I was right. So it was like this rude awakening, and I slept on this last night, but then I woke up this morning and I was like, today is the day that you are going to do the episode of It's Not Goodbye, It's Ta-Ta for Now, because you have a couple projects that need to be completed before school is out with your daughter, so that you are present, meaning me, with her. And this is something I've been really, really paying attention to the last couple of weeks, is just like when I give my daughter this present attention, her attitude is better. Her, she's so much more cheerful. She's so much more consistent. And I was like, I'm being shown the things that I actually needed as a kid that I'm now getting to redo. And as a mom instead. And I have not talked a lot about this on the podcast yet either. I'm also in this generation where You know, my mom's 77. My mom and I are, my mom is amazing, but she's getting to age and having some health complications that require me to be there as, you know, switch my role a little bit from her daughter to more of a parenting role for her. And she is definitely like not like to a point where I need to take care of her like a child. But she is transitioning, like, and I want to be present for that too, because and this is probably going to make me cry, but like, even prior to going to this episode today, I read a post about like how, you know, the last years, you never know when your time's up. But you'll miss the day when, you know, you didn't get a call from your mother, or you weren't able to call her, or your parent. Maybe it's your father. I lost my father when I was really young. I was 12 years old. And so can you make those memories count? Can you make that time count? And so even though this podcast doesn't take me a lot of time, it's freeing me up to be able to spend the time the way I want to. And that's such a gift. And man, I had no intention of going down this route, but I'm doing it. I'm going to stick with it. So can you just really, really get clear with what your priorities are? And do you need to rework them? Like I said, when I wrote this was yesterday, right before I recorded this, that I said, you know, I had done the life audit, and then I said, what are some of the things that you need to shift to make space for you to do to call in some different things that are part of your calling, but also to make space and time for the people that matter most that won't always be here. And also make time and space for you to be present with moments that you don't get back, such as like my daughter being 5 this summer, and us having a cabin on the lake where she's at that age where she just loves to be with me. Like, it's sometimes, even this morning when I dropped her off at school, she was like, I don't want to be with a babysitter today, Mom. I want to be with you. And it's like, that might not always be the case. So can I savor this moment? And I had a really good friend, her name's Melissa, and she told me this one thing, and it just stuck so hard for me, which was, she said that if you look at it as a parent, on average, you have 18 summers with your kids. And I was like, holy shit, I'm 5 in. You know, like this is going to be the 6th one I have with her. And man, that makes it like, that put it in perspective so quickly for me of like, yeah, I want to maximize this time. And I'm hoping that when she's 18, she still thinks I'm kind of cool, or maybe I'm even physically here because I'm an old mom. So just really using this time as, like I said, asking yourself, what are not the things that you need to get rid of, not the things you need to lose, reframing it, and what are the things you need to reprioritize for yourself going into this summer. Like, what are going to be priorities with your kids? And if you have multiple kids, like, maybe the priorities are, there's some that are core, but then there's other ones that are more specific to each child. Just like I have things that I want to focus on with Lily, my daughter, and then I also have things that I want to focus on with my mom. And like I said, neither one of them, myself included, none of us know what time we have left. So it's like, are we spending it in the way that matters most to us? And can we be okay with the courage to call it? To call it when it's like, hey, it's time to quit this. Hey, it's time to give this up. Or, hey, it's time to move towards this. Hey, it's time to start doing this. And can you just really be honest, that level of honesty with yourself? And I think that that's something that's really, really, like, we are all given as a gift, but we get to choose how we use it. How do we package it? How do we open it? How do we keep it? Or do we give it away? And really digging deep onto things and getting clear on the things that really matter to you. Again, not in just your business, but in your life, and being really strategic and calculating on how you are reprioritizing your time. And so, again, this is not goodbye. It is ta-ta for now. And thank you for your loyal listening, your loyal sharing, your reviews, your kindness, your direct messages, so that you can take that with you. And as I said, we'll probably be back early fall once we get through the summer. Once, like I said, the next month, I got a few major projects that need to be completed prior to her being out of school. And I hope you will rejoin me when I come back. And I have some, new stories, new life, something new to share with you. And like I said, even not knowing specifically what that is. And when Jenna Kutcher talked about that, is like, she was saying, like, I'm not stopping podcasting because I have something specific to fill it with. And I'll be completely honest, to me, I don't. And I just know that I need to free up space for something new to come out into my life, or new to come out of me. And I know that this is what needs to happen. So, thank you for all of your love, all your support, and we'll see you when we return.